The stars were quiet that night, but the signal broke the silence. It came from the edge of the Orion belt, faint and broken, like someone whispering through a storm. Earth's listening stations picked it up at 3:17 hours. The message was not long, only 3 words: "Help, we suffer." At first, scientists thought it was static. Then they heard the second transmission. The same words, but this time with a sound behind them, like crying, like desperation. The world went silent as the recording was played again and again. The voice was not human. It was alien. Within hours, news channels across Earth screamed the headline, "First Contact, a cry for help from the stars." The United Nations met in emergency session. Politicians argued. Was this real? Was it a trick? Or was there truly a civilization out there begging for mercy? The military wanted caution. The scientists wanted answers. And the people, ordinary humans sitting in their homes, felt a mix of fear and excitement. Humanity was no longer alone. But there was something strange. The voice did not explain what danger they faced. It only begged. No coordinates, no details, just a plea that struck deep into the human heart. Some saw it as a test of compassion. Others saw it as a trap. Yet Earth decided to answer. The message was sent back through every frequency, in every known mathematical pattern. We hear you. We will help. For weeks, transmissions went back and forth. The alien voice grew more desperate, more emotional. It spoke of darkness, of hunger, of being hunted. But still, there was no clear explanation. Only fear. Humanity's leaders hesitated, but ordinary people demanded action. If another species cried for help, Earth must not ignore it. So, the first mission was prepared. The Dauntless, a massive starship built for exploration but armed for defense, was launched with a crew of 2,000. Soldiers, scientists, doctors, engineers, all trained for the unknown. The world watched as the ship rose into orbit and vanished into the dark. Days turned to weeks. Then the Dauntless found the source. It was a world that did not look dead. Blue oceans shimmered under white clouds, green land stretched wide, and the air was clean. But when the humans scanned for cities, for life, they found only ruins. Towers stood broken, ships lay scattered like bones, and strange symbols marked the ground. Something terrible had happened here. And then they heard it again. "Help us, we suffer." The signal came from beneath the ruins of a city. The crew landed carefully, armored vehicles rolling across cracked streets. The city smelled of fire and ash, though no fire burned. Shadows moved in the corners of broken buildings, but no life signs appeared on the scanners. Captain Elena Reyes, leader of the mission, ordered her team forward. They followed the signal into a shattered temple of stone and steel. At its heart, they found a chamber glowing with strange blue light. A machine stood there, old and rusted, repeating the same words over and over: "Help us, we suffer." There was no alien, no survivors, just a recording. The soldiers looked at each other in silence. The scientists argued. Had they come too late? Was this world already gone? Or was someone still hiding? But then, a second signal activated. Not a cry this time, laughter. Cold, mocking laughter that echoed through every speaker on the ship, every helmet, every ear. A new voice spoke. "You came. You answered. Just as we knew you would." The crew froze. Captain Reyes demanded, "Who are you? Show yourself." The laughter grew louder. "We are not the weak. We are not the hunted. We are the hunters. And you are the prey. We wanted to see if your kind was foolish enough to care. You humans, so quick to run to strangers, so eager to play heroes. Now we know. You will bleed." Suddenly, the scanners lit up. Ships uncloaked above the ruined city, black and sharp like blades. Their weapons glowed with red fire. The ruins were not ruins at all. They were bait. The humans realized too late. The cry for help had been a trap. The first shots tore through the sky, burning human vehicles, blasting craters into the streets. The soldiers fought back, firing into the shadows, but the enemy was everywhere. They were fast, brutal, and merciless. On Earth, the transmission came through live feeds. Billions watched in horror as the Dauntless and her crew were ambushed. Screams filled the comms, fire filled the screens, and then, static. Humanity had been mocked. They had answered a false cry for help. And now, Earth knew the truth. The galaxy was not empty. It was full of predators. And they had just declared war on mankind. The silence after the ambush was heavier than death. For 3 long hours, Earth received nothing but static from the Dauntless. Then, one final transmission broke through. Fragmented, broken, but unforgettable. A soldier's voice, filled with pain and rage, whispered, "They tricked us. Don't trust. Burn them all." And then, silence forever. The world went cold. Families cried for their lost fathers, mothers, brothers, and sisters. Governments struggled to hide their fear. The great starship, Earth's pride, was gone. 2,000 lives extinguished. And all because humanity had believed in mercy. For days, anger spread like fire. People filled the streets, shouting, demanding vengeance. News channels replayed the mocking alien laughter again and again. Politicians who once preached caution now stood shaking with fury. Humanity had been insulted. Humanity had been hunted. And humanity would answer. In secret bases, the Earth Defense Fleet prepared. Factories that once built machines for peace now worked day and night, forging weapons of war. Satellites carried new designs, blueprints for ships faster, stronger, and deadlier than ever before. The scientists who had begged for peace now stood beside the generals. There would be no more trust. Captain Elena Reyes was listed as missing, presumed dead. But her last order still echoed through the surviving fragments of her logs. "If they want fire, we'll give them fire." And the world listened. The program was given a name, Operation Phoenix. Like the bird that rose from ashes, humanity would rise stronger. Months passed. While the alien hunters laughed in the shadows, watching, waiting for their prey to break, Earth forged something new. Not just one ship, but a fleet. Sleek warships armed with rail cannons that could split mountains, plasma torpedoes that burned brighter than suns, and stealth systems that turned them into ghosts. But humanity did not only prepare machines. They prepared people. Elite soldiers were chosen, hardened by loss, fueled by rage. They were trained not to fear the dark. They learned alien languages, alien tactics, alien weaknesses. They studied every scrap of data left from the Dauntless' last battle, learning how the enemy moved, how they struck, how they thought. And when the day came, the President of Earth spoke not as a politician, but as a warrior. Her voice was broadcast across every city, every home, every colony. They mocked us with a false cry. They thought we would kneel. But they forgot one thing. Humans do not break. We burn. And when we burn brighter than any star. Today, we do not ask for peace. Today, we take war to their door. The people roared. The fleet launched. Hundreds of warships rose from Earth, their engines tearing through the skies. Civilians stood on rooftops, watching with clenched fists, whispering prayers and curses. Mothers who had lost children to the ambush whispered one promise: make them pay. The fleet did not travel blind. A secret beacon had been hidden in the ruins of the alien trap, planted by a dying soldier of the Dauntless before the end. It pulsed faintly, leading the humans back to the Predator's hunting grounds. When they arrived, there was no hesitation. The alien fleet was waiting, confident, arrogant. They thought humanity would crawl back again, desperate and weak. They thought they would watch another slaughter. Instead, they saw fire. The first human strike came without warning. Rail cannons fired from beyond visual range, shredding alien ships before they even turned. Plasma torpedoes cut through their shields like knives through glass. The hunters who once mocked humanity now screamed as their ships burned. Captain Marcus Hale, commander of the flagship Vanguard, gave the order every human had waited to hear: no mercy. Burn them all. And humanity obeyed. Fighter squadrons swarmed like hornets, cutting down alien interceptors with brutal precision. Boarding pods smashed into enemy vessels, where human soldiers stormed through corridors, fighting with rage that no predator could match. The aliens were taller, stronger, sharper, but humans were stubborn. Humans refused to die. Every blow the aliens struck was answered with 10. Every scream of laughter was drowned in human fire. 4 hours, the stars were war. Flames lit the void, debris floated like bones, and the silence of space was broken by thunder. Humanity had been mocked, but now the mockers begged for survival. The aliens tried to retreat. They cloaked their ships, tried to vanish as before. But the humans had learned. The fleet tracked them, hunted them, cornered them. One by one, the predators fell. When the last ship burned, the galaxy saw something it had never seen before. Humanity victorious. Humanity unbroken. Humanity on fire. But even as the cheers echoed across Earth, Captain Hale looked into the ruins of the enemy fleet and whispered to himself, "If they were bold enough to play this game, they are not the only ones. Others are watching. Others are waiting." This was only the beginning. And in the deep darkness of the galaxy, far beyond human sight, other civilizations indeed watched. Some with fear. Some with curiosity. Some with hunger. The humans had entered the game of the stars. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The victory against the hunters was loud and glorious, but the silence that followed was even louder. The Earth Defense Fleet returned home with fire in their hearts and ashes on their hands. Cities across Earth celebrated with fireworks and cheers. Families hugged, tears mixing with relief. For the first time, humanity felt powerful among the stars. But not everyone celebrated. Some scientists and commanders noticed something strange. The enemy fleet, the one humanity had destroyed, was strong but not advanced enough. Their weapons were sharp, their ships deadly, but their technology was only a little ahead of Earth's. For a species that could set such a clever trap, their fleet was disappointing. Captain Marcus Hale, now the most respected commander in the fleet, spoke privately to the Council of Generals. They were dangerous, yes, but not supreme. Someone else taught them this game. Someone else made them bold enough to laugh at us. The room fell silent. Because deep down, everyone already knew. The Dauntless had not just been a test of strength, it had been a test of humanity's heart. And predators who set traps with fake cries for help were rarely acting alone. Weeks later, evidence appeared. Among the wreckage of the alien fleet, engineers found fragments of technology that did not match the hunter's design. Strange alloys. Energy cores far too advanced for their level. And inscriptions in a language unknown. It was proof. The hunters had masters. But who were they? And why had they used their servants to bait humanity? Captain Hale knew the answer was hidden in the ruins where the Dauntless had fallen. He led a new mission, this time with a smaller but deadlier fleet. They returned to the dead world where the first signal had been heard. The ruins were still there, silent and broken. But deep beneath the planet's surface, buried under mountains of stone, they found something new, a vault. The vault was not built by the hunters. Its walls glowed with energy that hummed in human bones. Its doors were etched with symbols no one could read. And when the humans forced it open, they found not treasure, not weapons, but records. Holograms flickered to life, showing alien figures, tall, cold, eyes glowing with unnatural light. They were not hunters. They were rulers. The recordings told a story. Long ago, a civilization called the Zyrex had spread across the stars. They were not conquerors in the old sense. They did not fight battles themselves. They used others. They raised species as tools, trained them as hunters, fed them lies, and then unleashed them on new prey. The hunters that attacked humanity were only one of many. Servants. Pawns. The Zyrex called it the harvest. They seeded false signals across the galaxy, waiting for compassionate species to respond. Any race foolish enough to answer was marked as weak, and then tested. If the prey fought back, they were watched more closely. If the prey broke, they were consumed. And now, humanity was in their sights. When Captain Hale finished watching the recordings, his face was pale but his voice steady. They wanted to see what we are. We showed them fire. But now they know we exist. And they are coming. The fleet returned to Earth with the truth. The celebrations ended. The cheers faded. Humanity was no longer proud. They were hunted. Not by simple predators, but by an empire that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Still, something had changed. The Zyrex had underestimated mankind. They had expected humans to die in the trap. Instead, Earth had destroyed their hunters. Instead of fear, the humans felt something else. Anger. Defiance. In secret war rooms, plans were drawn. Humanity could not match the Zyrex yet. Their technology was vast, their armies endless. But humans had something no empire could calculate: stubbornness. And already, whispers spread through the galaxy. Other species had seen the battle. Other prey races had suffered under the Zyrex. And some began to wonder, if humans could burn the hunters, could they burn the masters too? One night, Captain Hale stood on the observation deck of the Vanguard. The stars stretched endless before him, cold and quiet. He thought of the dauntless, of the soldiers who had died, of the laughter that mocked their mercy. He whispered, almost to himself, "They wanted a war. We'll give them one. But it won't just be us. The galaxy has been prey long enough." Behind him, his officers waited, silent, their faces hard with determination. Humanity had been tricked, mocked, and hunted. But humanity had not broken. And somewhere, far across the galaxy, the Zyrex watched their new prey with interest. For the first time in centuries, they felt something new. Uncertainty. Because humans were not like the others. Humans burned. Humans refused to bow. And when they rose in flames. The game had changed. And the galaxy was holding its breath. The news spread faster than light. Humanity had not only survived the hunters, they had defeated them. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's silent watchers saw something different. A prey species had turned on the predator. Whispers carried through hidden channels, across dead worlds and forgotten colonies. Species who had long lived in fear of the Zyrex now spoke the name of humanity in secret. Some called them reckless. Others called them cursed. But many called them hope. Captain Marcus Hale did not trust whispers. He wanted proof. He wanted allies. Because he knew the truth, humanity alone could not face the Zyrex. Not yet. The Earth Council agreed. The order was given: seek contact. The fleet left Earth again, this time not for war, but for diplomacy. Scouts traveled into uncharted sectors, following faint signals, old trade routes, half-broken beacons left behind by fallen civilizations. They searched for others who had been prey. The first contact came in a dust-choked system on the edge of a dying sun. There, in the ruins of a once great station, the humans found the Vaynar. The Vaynar were tall, with silver skin that reflected light like mirrors. Once, they had been a proud race of builders, their cities floating among the stars. But now, they were scattered survivors. The Zyrex had broken them centuries ago, using their own technology against them. When Captain Hale met their leader, an elder named Saren, the Vaynar's voice trembled with both fear and awe. "You fought the hunters," Saren said. "And you won. How?" Hale's answer was simple. "We burned." The Vaynar stared at him for a long time, then whispered, "Maybe fire is what the galaxy has been waiting for." Others followed. In the dark nebula of Karos, the humans met the Threx, a reptilian species whose claws were sharp but whose hearts had been broken. The Zyrex had forced them into endless war against each other, keeping them divided. When they heard of humanity's victory, they laid down their weapons for the first time in generations and asked to speak. In the frozen rings of Zoran, the humans found the Delari, small, insect-like creatures who lived hidden in ice caverns. They had mastered stealth to survive the endless hunts of the Zyrex. When human ships landed, the Delari were afraid, but when they saw humans stand tall instead of bow, they began to hope. One by one, the broken pieces of the galaxy gathered. They were weak alone. But with humanity, they could become strong. Not all trusted them. Some saw humanity as too young, too reckless. "You are a spark," one alien warned Hale. "And sparks burn out." But Hale only replied, "Sparks also start wildfires." The galaxy listened. Back on Earth, news of the alliances stirred mixed feelings. Many humans feared trusting aliens after the trap. But others understood, if the Zyrex ruled with division, then unity was the weapon they feared most. The fleet grew, not just with human ships, but with Venar engineers, Threx warriors, Delari spies. Slowly, painfully, a coalition was born. They called it the Flame Pact, a promise that no species would kneel again. But alliances brought danger. The Zyrex were not blind. Their watchers saw the movements. Their servants whispered of secret meetings, of broken species rising again. And so, the Zyrex sent a message to Earth, clear and cold. "You play with fire. Stop now, or your world will burn first." The Earth Council gathered to decide. Many feared the threat. But Captain Hale stood in the chamber, his voice steady, his eyes burning. "They already burned our people. They already mocked us. The only choice now is whether we fight together, or die alone." The Council voted. Humanity would not back down. That night, fleets gathered in orbit. Human soldiers trained beside alien warriors. Engineers from 3 species built weapons together. Languages mixed, cultures clashed, but one truth united them all: survival. Still, questions haunted Hale. Were they strong enough? Or were they walking into the Zyrex's plan once again? One evening, Saren of the Venar stood beside him on the deck of the Vanguard. Stars glimmered like endless fireflies. "You humans are strange," Saren said softly. "You lose much, yet you rise stronger. Why?" Hale looked out at the stars, his jaw tight. "Because every time someone tries to break us, we remember. And we don't forget. Not ever." The Venar elder nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is what the Zyrex fear most, not your fire, but your memory." Far away, beyond the reach of the Flame Pact, the Zyrex Council gathered in their shadowed halls. Their eyes glowed like cold suns as they studied recordings of human battles, human speeches, human defiance. For the first time in ages, they did not laugh. Instead, one of the masters whispered, "Perhaps we have awakened something we cannot control." The galaxy trembled on the edge of war. Humanity had allies now. Humanity had fire. But against the Zyrex, was fire enough? The Flame Pact was young, fragile, still learning to trust itself. The humans had brought fire, the Venar brought wisdom, the Threx brought warriors, and the Delari brought shadows. But together, they were still small compared to the endless reach of the Zyrex. And the Zyrex wasted no time in striking. It began with silence. Outposts along the border stopped reporting. Scout ships vanished. Whole colonies went dark, their signals cut as if swallowed by the void. At first, the coalition thought it was fear or sabotage. But then the truth came. From the darkness of the Keros Nebula, a fleet emerged. Not hunters this time, but the true weapons of the Zyrex. Towering warships shaped like blades, their hulls black as the void, their eyes glowing with cold blue fire. Thousands of them. When the first images reached the Flame Pact Council, the room fell silent. Even the Threx, proud warriors, lowered their eyes. This was no raid. This was extermination. Captain Marcus Hale stared at the display, his face hard. "They want to crush us before we can rise. They want to show the galaxy that fire cannot stand against them." Saren of the Venar whispered, "And if they win here, all hope dies." The decision was made. The Flame Pact fleet gathered at Zoran, the frozen world of the Delari. It was the closest stronghold they had, its ice caverns filled with hidden defenses and old tunnels. If they could hold Zoran, they could prove that the Zyrex were not invincible. The battle came fast. The Zyrex fleet entered orbit like a storm, their cannons tearing through the frozen rings, shattering mountains of ice. But the Flame Pact was ready. Human rail cannons roared from orbit, Vaynar shields shimmered against the first strikes, and Threx warcruisers dove into the enemy lines like spears. For the first time in centuries, the Zyrex faced resistance. The sky lit up with fire. Explosions turned the darkness into dawn. Human pilots fought alongside Delari shadowships, weaving through the chaos. Boarding pods slammed into Zyrex hulls, where Threx warriors unleashed their fury, their claws dripping with alien blood. The battle was brutal. On the ground, Zoran's surface shook as Zyrex landing craft descended. Columns of enemy soldiers, tall, armored, their eyes glowing blue, marched across the ice. But the Delari were waiting in their tunnels. They struck from shadows, disappearing before the enemy could fire back. Human marines fought beside them, rifles blazing, grenades shaking the caverns. The frozen world became a furnace. Still, the Zyrex kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 3 more appeared. For every soldier killed, 10 more marched forward. The Flame Pact began to bend under the weight of the storm. On the vanguard, Hale stood surrounded by fire and static. "If we break here, we lose everything," he said to his officers. His eyes burned with determination. "Then we don't break." He ordered a maneuver no one expected. The human fleet pulled back, leaving the center of the battlefield open. The Zyrex surged forward, confident, rushing into the gap. But hidden beneath the ice of Zoran, Vaynar engineers had planted something deadly. Massive plasma warheads linked to human detonators. When the enemy fleet pushed too deep, Hale gave the order. The ice exploded. A chain of fire erupted across Zoran's rings, ripping through the heart of the Zyrex armada. Dozens of ships burned at once, their wreckage crashing into each other, their blue eyes fading into ash. The shockwave shook the battlefield, throwing even human ships off course. But the Zyrex had taken their first wound. The Flame Pact roared. The Threx pushed harder, the Delari struck deeper, the humans fired faster. For the first time, the Zyrex hesitated. They were not used to prey that bit back. But victory was not free. Thousands of Flame Pact soldiers fell. Threx warcruisers burned in orbit, their crews going down with honor. Delari tunnels collapsed under bombardment, burying entire clans. And when the smoke cleared, half the human fleet was gone. On the surface, Hale stood among the ruins, his armor scarred, his voice hoarse. "We held," he said quietly. "We held the line." The galaxy heard. The Flame Pact had faced the Zyrex head-on, and survived. Not escaped. Not hidden. Survived. For the first time in centuries, the Zyrex had been stopped. But as their fleet retreated into the shadows, one truth became clear. The war had only begun. The Flame Pact was stronger now, bonded in blood and fire. But the Zyrex had endless armies, endless servants, endless cruelty. And they would not forgive this wound. On their throne world, the masters of the Zyrex gathered. Their glowing eyes burned with fury. "The humans," one hissed. "The spark spreads. If it is not crushed, it will become a firestorm." Another answered coldly. "Then we will drown their fire in darkness. We will show the galaxy that hope itself is a lie." But somewhere in the ruins of Zoran, among the bodies of the fallen, a human soldier carved words into the ice. "They mocked us. Now we burn them." The words spread like wildfire. And the galaxy began to believe. The ruins of Zoran still smoked when the Flame Pact made their choice. They had survived the storm. They had bled the Zyrex. But Captain Marcus Hale knew survival was not enough. "If we only wait, they will come again," he told the council. His voice was steady, his eyes sharp. "Next time, they'll send twice as many. Next time, we will not hold. We must strike first." Many argued against him. The Vaynar feared awakening more fury. The Delari whispered that shadows survive by hiding, not by burning. Even some human leaders hesitated. Earth had already lost too many. But the Threx slammed their claws against the table. The prey who hides dies. The prey who bites lives. And slowly, the others agreed. The Flame Pact would not wait for death. They would carry war into Xyrix space. The plan was daring, almost reckless. The Xyrix Empire stretched across thousands of systems. To challenge them head-on was suicide. But Hale did not plan to strike the throne world. Not yet. Instead, they aimed for a supply world, a place the Xyrix used to forge weapons and feed their armies. It was called Vorik, a factory world where whole continents were covered in forges and shipyards. If Vorik fell, the Xyrix would bleed. The fleet prepared. Human engineers rearmed ships with new weapons forged from stolen Xyrix tech. Vaynar builders strengthened shields beyond anything Earth had known. Delari spies mapped secret routes through the void, hidden paths the Xyrix had forgotten. And the Threx trained warriors for boarding assaults, their war cries echoing through the ships like thunder. When the day came, the flame-packed fleet left Zoran in silence. Civilians watched from the frozen plains, their breath misting in the cold air, their eyes full of hope and fear. The journey was long, through dark sectors where no stars shone. They moved like ghosts, avoiding Xyrix patrols, their engines silent, their comms dark. And then, Vorik appeared. It was a world of fire. Massive forges burned day and night, their flames visible from orbit. Ships rose from the surface like sparks from a bonfire, warships being built, armed, made ready to spread death. Factories stretched across the continents, and slave camps ringed the planet, filled with broken species forced to serve the Xyrix. Hale's jaw tightened. We end this. The flame pact struck. From the shadows of the void, human ships fired the first volley. Rail cannons thundered, plasma torpedoes streaked like suns. The Xyrix defenses screamed, shields flaring, but the surprise was total. Threx warcruisers dove straight into the shipyards, claws tearing through half-finished vessels, leaving burning wreckage behind. Delari stealth ships slipped past defenses, cutting power grids, plunging whole regions of the planet into darkness. And then the ground assault began. Dropships screamed through the atmosphere, landing in the heart of Vorik's factories. Human marines stormed through endless corridors of fire and steel, freeing slaves, planting explosives. Vaynar engineers hacked the forges, turning their machines against their masters. Threx warriors ripped through armored guards, their roars shaking the halls. The battle was chaos. Every street burned. Every sky rained fire. But the Flame Pact fought like demons, driven by memory, by rage, by hope. For the first time, the slaves of the Xyrix saw something they had never seen before: victory. They saw humans standing tall, unbroken, fighting not for conquest but for freedom. And the slaves rose. They grabbed tools, weapons, anything they could find, and turned on their masters. The forges of Vorik became battlefields, not for the Xyrix, but against them. The tide turned. But the Xyrix did not yield easily. Reinforcements poured from orbit. Giant walkers thundered across the factories, their cannons blasting apart whole squads. Dreadnoughts descended, raining fire from the skies. Hale knew they could not hold Vorik forever. The Xyrix would drown them in numbers. But they did not need forever. They only needed enough time to burn it. He gave the order. Every explosive planted, every forge hacked, every reactor sabotaged, detonate. The world shook. The forges of Vorik erupted, fire tearing across continents, shipyards collapsing into molten seas. Xyrix warships fell from orbit, consumed by explosions below. Factories that had fed the Empire for centuries became graves. The Flame Pact retreated, ships rising into the void as the planet burned. Slave transports followed, filled with those they had freed. Behind them, Vorik died screaming. When the fleet reassembled, scarred and bloodied but alive, a silence fell. Hale looked at the planet one last time, its surface glowing red like a dying ember. "We cannot fight them everywhere," he said. "But we can bleed them. And every world we burn weakens them." The message spread. The Zyrex were not untouchable. Their empire could be wounded. Their prey could rise. Across the galaxy, hidden species heard the news. Some whispered in fear, the Zyrex would surely strike back harder. But others, long broken, long silent, whispered something new. If the humans can fight, why not us? In the shadows of the throne world, the Zyrex council seethed. Vorak's destruction echoed through their empire. Their eyes burned with cold fury. Enough games, one master hissed. The humans are not prey. They are infection. Another spoke, voice like stone. Then we will cure the infection. Not with hunters. Not with pawns. With us. For the first time in centuries, the masters themselves prepared to rise from their thrones. And far away, in the dark of space, Captain Hale felt it in his bones. The real war was about to begin. The galaxy trembled. Vorak burned, the flame pact stood alive, and for the first time in centuries, the Zyrex had bled. But victory came with a price. The masters were awake now. On their throne world, in halls carved from black stone and fire, the Zyrex gathered. Their eyes glowed with cold blue light, their voices echoing like thunder across the void. They had ruled through shadows and servants for thousands of years, never needing to rise themselves. But humanity had forced their hand. No more pawns, one master hissed. We end this with our own claws. Across the galaxy, every world under their rule heard the same command. Burn the humans, break their allies, erase the flame pact from existence. And so, the largest fleet the stars had ever seen moved. Not hundreds. Not thousands. Tens of thousands. A tide of darkness that spread across systems like a storm. The flame pact prepared. They were smaller, weaker, fewer. But something burned inside them that the Zyrex did not understand. The humans had carried it first, and now it spread like fire to every ally. The Vanar stood taller, no longer broken. The Threx sharpened their claws, their war songs fierce. The Delari sharpened their blades in the dark, whispering of vengeance. On Earth, people built weapons in their streets, children painted flames on walls, families whispered promises to their dead. Humanity had been mocked, hunted, nearly broken. But not anymore. The final battle began in the shadow of a dying star. The Zyrex fleet arrived like a black sea, their warships stretching beyond sight, their weapons glowing blue. Against them, the flame pact waited, only a few thousand ships, a single spark in the dark. But sparks start wildfires. Captain Marcus Hale stood on the bridge of the Vanguard. His face was scarred, his eyes weary, but his voice burned like steel. They think we are prey. They think they are gods. Today, we show them the truth. Today, we burn them down. The order was given. The flame pact charged. Rail cannons thundered, plasma torpedoes blazed, shields shimmered as the first wave of Zyrex fire struck. Entire pact ships shattered, torn apart by the storm. But still they advanced. Threx warcruisers rammed into enemy dreadnoughts, tearing holes with claws and detonations. Delari stealth ships darted through the chaos, striking engines, vanishing before the counterfire came. In the center, the Vanguard led the charge, its guns blazing, its engines burning white. But the Zyrex masters were not ordinary foes. Their ships were larger, their weapons older than human history. Entire packed squadrons vanished in blue fire. The tide threatened to crush them. Then, something unexpected happened. Across the galaxy, other species rose. Races who had been silent for centuries saw the flame-packed fighting, saw humanity standing unbroken, and found courage. Old ships, broken fleets, even scavenger bands all turned toward the battle. One by one, they arrived. The flame pact was no longer 1,000 ships. It was 10,000. Then 20. A wildfire spreading through the stars. The Zyrex roared in fury, but the fire spread too fast. On the surface of a shattered moon, human marines and Threx warriors stormed a Zyrex fortress, where one of the masters commanded. The battle was brutal. Soldiers fell by the hundreds. But Hale himself led the charge, his rifle blazing, his voice carrying through the smoke. He faced the master in its throne of black stone. The creature towered above him, eyes burning, voice dripping with contempt. "You are nothing but sparks," it hissed. "Sparks die in the dark." Hale's answer was simple. He raised his weapon, blood on his armor, fire in his eyes. "Then let's see how well you burn." The battle shook the fortress. Explosives tore the walls apart, fire consumed the chambers, and for the first time in centuries, a Xyrix master fell. Burned not by gods, but by men. When the news spread across the battlefield, the flame-pact roared like a single voice. The masters could bleed. The masters could die. The tide shifted. One by one, the masters were hunted. Not just by humans, but by every species they had broken, every prey they had mocked. The galaxy itself rose in fire. The battle raged for days. Systems burned, fleets shattered, worlds trembled. But when the smoke cleared, the Xyrix were gone. Not all destroyed, not all erased. Some vanished into the shadows, promising they would return. But their empire was broken. Their throne world was ash. The galaxy was free. On Earth, the people gathered in silence. No fireworks. No parades. Just fire-lit candles, one for every life lost, one for every star that had burned. Humanity had not won alone. But humanity had lit the fire. Captain Hale stood on the balcony of the rebuilt council chamber, staring at the night sky. The stars glittered above him, endless and cold. But to him, they did not look cold anymore. They looked alive. "They mocked us," he whispered, the words carried by the wind. "They thought mercy was weakness. They thought fire was small. But we showed them. Humanity does not break. Humanity burns." Behind him, children from Earth and from alien worlds laughed together, their voices rising like music. The future was uncertain. Other predators would come. Other wars would rise. But the galaxy would never forget this one truth. The humans had answered a false cry for help. They had been mocked. They had been hunted. And they had replied in flames.